The massive Zaxteri ship emerged from hyperspace near Earth's orbit, its crystalline hull reflecting the pale sunlight. Inside the ship's observation deck, lead scientist Kextal's 4 eyes blinked in disappointment at the sight of the blue planet below. The world appeared abandoned, its surface dotted with the remains of what once might have been cities. Another dead civilization, Kextal muttered, his scaled fingers tapping against the transparent viewing panel. How primitive must they have been to destroy themselves so completely? The exploration fleet spread out across Earth's orbit, their advanced sensors scanning the surface. Junior Science Officer Velra approached Kextal with a preliminary report. "Sir, we detect no active power signatures. The ruins appear to be approximately 50 Earth years old. No signs of current human activity." Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a chamber unknown to the alien visitors, Dr. Alice Bennett floated in her cryopod, unaware of the beings examining her world. The status light on her pod glowed a steady green, indicating perfect functioning of the suspended animation systems. She was not alone. 10,000 other pods filled the vast underground facility, each containing a carefully selected survivor of humanity's apparent exodus. Back on the Zaxteri ship, Kextal authorized the first landing parties. 3 shuttlecraft descended through Earth's atmosphere, touching down in what had once been downtown Denver. The alien researchers emerged in their environmental suits, though scans showed the air was perfectly breathable. "Look at these crude structures," one researcher said, running a scanner over a partially collapsed building. They barely understood basic materials science. Their strongest buildings used primitive concrete and steel. What the aliens failed to notice was that their scanners were only showing them what humanity had wanted potential visitors to see. The crude buildings contained walls made of self-repairing nanomaterials, disguised to look like simple concrete. The scattered debris that littered the streets contained dormant quantum computers, their true nature hidden beneath an artificial patina of rust and decay. In her cryo chamber, automatic systems monitored Alice's vital signs as they had done for the past 5 decades. Her mind, though in suspended animation, contained the knowledge of humanity's true achievements. Achievements that would have made the arrogant Zaxteri researchers gasp in shock. The quantum computers embedded in her cryopod had more processing power than the entire alien fleet combined. The landing parties continued their survey, documenting what they believed to be the remnants of a fallen civilization. They photographed empty streets, collected samples of building materials, and logged their findings with the smug satisfaction of advanced beings studying the remains of their inferiors. Their technology level appears to have been early atomic age, Kextal announced to his team after reviewing the initial reports. They had barely mastered basic spaceflight when something, perhaps a war or environmental disaster, ended their civilization. The truth was far different from what the aliens imagined. 50 years ago, humanity had made a discovery that changed everything. They detected the approaching Zaxteri fleet. Instead of preparing for war or attempting diplomatic contact, they chose a different path. Under the guidance of leaders like Alice Bennett, they initiated the Great Disguise. Cities were carefully redesigned to appear destroyed while actually being upgraded. Technology was advanced to levels that would seem impossible to the aliens, then hidden beneath false veneers of rust and decay. The majority of humanity relocated to hidden facilities, leaving behind a world that appeared abandoned but was actually more alive and advanced than ever. In her cryopod, Alice's fingers twitched slightly, a normal occurrence in long-term suspension. Above her pod, hidden sensors tracked every movement of the alien vessels. The facility's quantum AI calculated and recalculated the optimal time for awakening, based on thousands of variables. The humans were not dead or extinct. They were waiting, preparing, and watching. The Zaxteri research team set up their base camp among the ruins, confident in their superiority and completely unaware of the incredible deception surrounding them. They had no idea that their every move was being monitored, their every conversation recorded, their every scan analyzed by systems far beyond their comprehension. The greatest trap in human history was perfectly set. Now all that remained was to wait for the right moment to spring it. 3 weeks into their expedition, the Zaxteri research teams had spread across the globe. They set up their primary research base in what remained of Denver, with secondary stations in the ruins of other major cities. Chief Archaeologist Peter Wright watched them through the facility's hidden sensors, his cryopod maintaining his suspended state, while his mind processed the limited sensory input allowed by the suspension protocol. The aliens had established a large dig site near the old Denver airport, their equipment scattered across the cracked tarmac. "This material is fascinating," said researcher Mechtel, analyzing a piece of what appeared to be primitive circuit board. They were just beginning to understand digital technology when they vanished. The circuit board was actually a decoy, carefully crafted 50 years ago. The real technology lay beneath their feet, quantum-enabled smart materials that could process more data than all of their alien computers combined. The humans had hidden their true achievements in plain sight, disguising them as garbage and ruins. Inside the mountain facility, Peter's pod neighbor was Dr. Amy Russell, expert in alien psychology. Her suspended form held vital research about the Zaxteri, gathered over decades of long-range observation. The humans had studied their visitors long before they arrived, planning each detail of the deception with careful precision. "Look at these crude attempts at spaceflight technology," said Velera, examining what appeared to be an old rocket engine. She held up the corroded piece of metal triumphantly. They couldn't even achieve efficient fuel consumption. Their vessels would have barely reached their own moon. The Zaxteri cataloged everything meticulously, recording what they believed to be the full extent of human achievement. They documented old cars, broken computers, and abandoned buildings. Each discovery reinforced their belief in their own superiority, never suspecting that every primitive artifact was carefully placed to tell exactly the story they expected to find. Deep in his cryo-sleep, Peter's consciousness stirred slightly. The facility's AI noted the movement, comparing it to expected patterns. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The aliens were building their research bases exactly where the humans had predicted they would, half a century ago. "These humans were remarkably consistent in their mediocrity," Kextel reported to the Fleet Command. "Every site we've examined shows the same level of primitive technology. They appear to have achieved a basic industrial civilization before their extinction." The aliens set up their sleep pods each night in the ruins, confident in their safety. Their security systems were advanced, but they couldn't detect the dormant defense grid hidden within the very ground they slept on. Every night, nanoscale sensors recorded their movements, their conversations, their plans. In the facility, Peter's pod contained detailed files about every piece of technology the aliens were discovering. He had helped design many of the decoys himself, ensuring they would appear primitive while containing hidden markers that only activated human sensors could detect. Each marker transmitted valuable data about the aliens' research methods. One young Zaxteri researcher, Tixna, had developed a particular interest in human art. She spent hours documenting the graffiti left on walls, never realizing that the seemingly random patterns contained encoded quantum data streams. Every piece of street art was actually a node in a vast communication network, waiting to be activated. As the aliens slept in their bases each night, the hidden systems continued their work. Quantum computers processed their findings, defense systems tracked their movements, and the countdown to awakening continued. In their pods, Peter and Amy's vital signs remained stable, their minds holding the knowledge that would soon shatter the aliens' confidence. The Zaxteri had come expecting to study ruins. They had found exactly what they were looking for, or so they thought. But beneath the carefully crafted veneer of destruction and decay, humanity's greatest achievement lay waiting. A deception so perfect that even the most advanced alien race never questioned what they saw. Lisa Morgan opened her eyes for the first time in 50 years. The cryopod's cover slid away silently as the revival process completed. She was the first to wake, chosen specifically for her skills in observation and analysis. The facility's AI had determined the optimal moment for her awakening, based on the Zaxteri's increasingly predictable patterns. Through the facility's quantum surveillance network, Lisa watched the aliens go about their daily routines. She sat at a monitoring station disguised as a simple rock formation, her fingers dancing across surfaces that appeared to be rough stone but were actually advanced control interfaces. The aliens had established a regular pattern now, growing comfortable in their occupation of what they thought were simple ruins. The primitive nature of human computing is almost amusing, she heard one alien researcher say through the surveillance feed. The Zaxteri was holding what appeared to be an old laptop, corroded and worthless. In reality, the device contained sensors that were now actively scanning the aliens' biological makeup, adding to humanity's growing database of knowledge about their visitors. Lisa took a sip of water from her recycled pod fluid, processed and purified by systems far more advanced than anything the Zaxteri had. She watched as they continued their research, cataloging what they believed to be humanity's highest achievements. Every discovery they made had been carefully placed there 50 years ago. In the alien base camp, Kextall was preparing his weekly report to the Fleet Command. The human ruins continue to provide evidence of their technological limitations, he dictated. Their most advanced computers used primitive binary systems, and their power generation relied heavily on fossil fuels. Lisa couldn't help but smile at this. The quantum computers running her monitoring station used computing principles that would seem like magic to the aliens. The power systems keeping her facility running could have powered all of their ships without strain, but the deception had to be maintained, at least for now. She checked the status of the other sleepers. Amy Russell and Peter Wright remained in stable suspension, along with thousands of others. Their pods were actually doing far more than just keeping them alive. Each one was a node in a vast network, processing data and maintaining the illusion that surrounded the aliens. A young Zaxteri researcher wandered close to one of the hidden facility entrances that day. Lisa watched tensely as the alien scanners passed over the seemingly solid rock face. The quantum camouflage held perfectly. Where the aliens saw natural rock formations, there actually stood a door that could have admitted their largest vehicles. The humans seemed to have had a peculiar fascination with hiding things, the researcher noted in their log. We keep finding sealed chambers and locked containers, though they contain nothing of value, merely more primitive artifacts. Lisa made notes of her own as she watched. The aliens' technological blind spots were becoming clear. They couldn't detect quantum state changes. They didn't understand how to look for dimensional folding. Their sensors, despite their apparent sophistication, could be fooled by even the simplest quantum camouflage. In the evening, as the alien researchers retired to their bases, Lisa began activating more systems. Tiny nanobots, disguised as dust, infiltrated the alien camps. They gathered data, sampled materials, and added to humanity's understanding of their unwanted visitors. Each piece of information brought them closer to the moment when the deception would end. The Zaxteri slept peacefully, confident in their technological superiority. They never noticed the slight shimmer in the air as quantum fields adjusted around them. They couldn't detect the constant stream of data flowing through the ruins they mocked. Most importantly, they didn't realize that their every action was helping to perfect the trap they had walked into. The first sign that something was wrong came when 3 Zaxteri researchers lost scanner readings simultaneously. Their devices simply stopped working, showing only static before returning to normal a few minutes later. They blamed it on equipment malfunction and continued their work, unaware that Kevin Carter had just woken up from his 50-year sleep. Kevin, the Defense Systems Coordinator, joined Lisa at the control center. His specialty was making things go wrong in ways that seemed natural. "The aliens are getting comfortable," he said, watching the monitors. "Time to make them a little less comfortable." That afternoon, the Zaxteri researchers found that their base camp's power systems were operating at reduced efficiency. Their engineers could find no cause for the power loss. They didn't realize that the ground beneath their feet contained networks of quantum energy siphons, slowly drawing power from their generators in amounts too small to detect individually. The temperature in Section 3 dropped again, reported one alien technician to Kextall. "We've checked the environmental systems 3 times. There's no explanation for it." The real cause was Kevin, carefully adjusting the thermal properties of the surrounding materials at a quantum level. Lisa watched as Kevin worked, his fingers moving across the control surfaces with practiced ease. "Remembered," she said, "we can't scare them away. Just keep them off balance." The plan required the aliens to stay, to keep studying what they thought were simple ruins. Each day they spent on Earth gave humanity more data about their technology and behavior. In their command center, the Zaxteri leaders were beginning to show signs of stress. "Another equipment failure in Sector 7, Velra reported. "That's the 5th one today. And we still haven't found the cause of the power fluctuations." The aliens started setting up additional security measures. They installed motion sensors, heat detectors, and energy field monitors. Kevin watched them work, noting every detail of their security systems. Each new device they installed was another tool he could use against them. "They're using crystalline power cores," he told Lisa, studying the data from their hidden sensors. "Impressive technology, but vulnerable to quantum resonance disruption. Good to know for later." He made careful notes, adding to the vast database of alien technological weaknesses they were building. Strange sounds began to echo through the ruins at night. The aliens blamed them on wind in the damaged buildings, not realizing that Kevin was using their own power systems to generate subtle vibrations in the structures around them. The sounds weren't random. They contained encoded messages that the facility's quantum computers used to coordinate their activities. One morning, the Zaxteri researchers found their carefully organized sample storage units had been rearranged. Nothing was missing, but items had been moved to different shelves. The security recording showed no evidence of tampering. Kevin had simply adjusted the quantum state of the storage units briefly, letting probability itself remix their contents. "The humans must have had some interesting atmospheric phenomena here," Kextall wrote in his log. "Our equipment keeps registering strange energy patterns that appear and disappear randomly." He was partly right. The energy patterns were there, but they weren't atmospheric. They were the wake of quantum operations happening all around them. Lisa and Kevin watched as the aliens increased their security patrols. Each new security measure revealed more about their technological capabilities. Each attempt to understand the strange occurrences gave humanity more insight into their thinking patterns. In the cryo chamber, more pods were being prepared for revival. The next phase would require more awake humans, more coordinated actions. The aliens' confusion was about to grow into concern, and then into something approaching fear. But for now, Kevin continued his work, making sure that nothing he did could be traced, that every incident could be explained away by natural causes or equipment failure. Dr. Susan Myers stood in the revival chamber, watching as rows of cryopods began their awakening sequences. The time had come to show the Zaxteri exactly what they had missed. As chief of the revival protocol, she had waited for this moment for 50 years. On the surface, the aliens were dealing with increasingly strange events. Their equipment wasn't just malfunctioning anymore. It was beginning to pick up energy readings that shouldn't have been possible in the ruins. "These patterns make no sense," Velra said, staring at her scanner. "It's as if the ruins themselves are coming alive." She wasn't entirely wrong. Throughout the city, quantum computers hidden within the decrepit buildings were powering up. What had looked like broken windows were actually advanced solar collectors. Crumbling walls contained power distribution networks more efficient than anything the Zaxteri had ever built. In the mountain facility, Susan worked with Lisa and Kevin to coordinate the mass revival. "Begin power-up sequence for sectors 1 through 5, she ordered. The hidden systems responded instantly, channeling energy through pathways that had laid dormant for decades. Kextall was in his command center when the first major anomaly appeared. All of their sensors simultaneously detected a massive energy surge from deep within the Earth. "That's impossible," he said, checking the readings again. "There's nothing down there but rock." The Zaxteri rushed to investigate the energy spike, bringing in their most advanced scanning equipment. But each scan showed them something different. The quantum shielding systems were working perfectly, feeding their sensors false data that changed every time they looked. Underground, more humans were waking up every minute. Engineers, scientists, soldiers, each chosen specifically for this moment. The revival chamber hummed with activity as Susan monitored their vital signs. 97% revival success rate, she reported to Lisa. "Better than we hoped." Above ground, the aliens watched in confusion as pieces of rubble began to disappear. The nanobots that had been disguised as dust and debris were receiving their activation signals. They merged together, forming into machines that simply vanished from alien sensors as their quantum states shifted. "We've lost contact with Research Base 3, an alien communications officer reported. The base hadn't been destroyed. The quantum field surrounding it had simply made it invisible to their systems. The humans inside their hidden facility could see everything clearly through their advanced sensors." Susan activated the next phase of the revival sequence. Deep beneath other cities across the globe, similar facilities began their awakening protocols. The energy signatures were now too large to hide, but it didn't matter anymore. The time for deception was nearly over. In the alien command center, Kextall was beginning to understand that something was terribly wrong. "All these years," he said quietly, looking at the growing energy readings, "we never thought to ask why the ruins were so perfectly preserved after 50 years. The answer was becoming clear. The ruins hadn't been preserved. They had been maintained. Every broken window, every crumbling wall, every piece of debris had been carefully managed to maintain the illusion of abandonment. Now that illusion was breaking down in a carefully controlled way." Susan watched the final revival pause opening. On her screens, she could see the alien researchers scrambling to understand what was happening. Their confusion was understandable. Everything they thought they knew about human civilization was wrong. "All revival sequences complete," she announced. Around her, the wakened humans were taking their stations. The facility thrummed with power as systems that had been dormant for 50 years came fully online. Through the quantum network, she could sense similar facilities across the planet doing the same. Lead engineer Frank Phillips stood at the main control center, now fully activated and gleaming with advanced technology. The fake walls had dissolved, revealing banks of quantum computers and holographic displays. Through the facility's sensors, he watched the Zaxteri rushing to respond to the growing crisis above. "You know what the funny thing is," he said to Lisa, who stood beside him. "We didn't even show them our best disguises. Those ruins up there, that's just what we wanted them to find." He gestured to a display showing the alien researchers frantically scanning the changing landscape. The Zaxteri were now witnessing the true nature of human civilization. Buildings they had dismissed as primitive were transforming. Quantum fields dropped, revealing structures that defied their understanding of physics. What they had thought was broken concrete was actually smart matter, capable of reorganizing itself at the molecular level. Kextall watched in shock as his research base's sensors began detecting vast underground complexes that hadn't been there moments before. "Impossible," he whispered. "We scanned these areas dozens of times." But the scans had shown them exactly what the humans had wanted them to see. Frank activated the city's transformation sequence. Above ground, the aliens stared in awe as the ruins began to change. Buildings reformed themselves, broken walls becoming smooth surfaces of advanced materials. Streets that had been cracked and broken flowed like liquid, revealing transport systems beyond anything the Zaxteri had imagined. "The humans never left," Velra said, finally understanding. "They were here the whole time, watching us, studying us." She looked down at her scanner. now realizing that even their most advanced technology had been thoroughly analyzed and understood by the people they thought were extinct. In the facility, Frank pulled up the complete database of Zaxteri technology they had compiled. Every scan they made, every test they ran, every piece of equipment they used, it all taught us more about them. They thought they were the researchers, but they were really the subjects. The aliens tried to contact their fleet, but found their communications mysteriously blocked. Not by jamming or interference, but by something more subtle. The quantum communications network that humanity had built could simply choose which signals to allow through space. They thought our exodus was a retreat, Frank explained to the newly awakened humans gathering in the control room. It was actually an upgrade cycle. We knew we needed to advance our technology, but we also knew we'd be watched. So we made them see exactly what they expected: a dead civilization. Above ground, the Zaxteri could only watch as more of their assumptions crumbled. The primitive roads they had studied were actually disguised matter transport systems. The simple power lines had been quantum energy conduits. Even the rust and decay had been carefully crafted nanomaterials. Frank activated the final sequence of revelations. Holographic displays appeared in the sky above every major city, visible to the shocked aliens. The displays showed the true history of Earth, not of a civilization that had died, but of one that had hidden itself to grow stronger. 50 years ago, we detected their approach, Frank said, watching the aliens' reactions through the surveillance systems. We had a choice: reveal ourselves as we were, or show them what they wanted to see while we prepared for this moment. The Zaxteri leaders were now frantically trying to understand the scope of their mistake. They had spent months documenting what they thought was a dead civilization, never realizing they were inside a vast laboratory. Every reaction, every decision, every assumption they had made had been noted and analyzed. Maria Davidson stood on the newly revealed command platform floating above what had once appeared to be the ruins of Denver. The quantum fields that had hidden humanity's true achievements were now fully dropped, revealing the breathtaking scope of their advancement. Below her, the Zaxteri research team stared upward, their four eyes wide with disbelief. For months, you studied what you thought were our ruins, she said, her voice carried by targeted sound waves to each alien individually. You documented our primitive technology. You filed reports about our extinction. Now, let us show you what you actually missed. Around the globe, massive structures emerged from their quantum camouflage. Transport hubs that could move people instantly across continents. Energy collectors that drew power from multiple dimensions. Manufacturing centers that could reorganize matter at the atomic level. Everything the aliens had seen had been a carefully crafted illusion. Kextel, who had been so confident in his assessment of human civilization, now stood trembling before the human leader. How? He asked simply. How did we miss all of this? Maria smiled, not unkindly. You saw what you expected to see. Your scanners showed you what we wanted them to show. Every piece of primitive technology you studied was designed to teach us more about your own capabilities. The Zaxteri fleet in orbit suddenly found itself surrounded by human ships that seemed to emerge from nowhere. The vessels weren't aggressive, but their presence made it clear who now controlled Earth's space. The ships had been there all along, hidden by the same quantum technology that had concealed the rest of human civilization. Your people have two choices, Maria announced to the assembled aliens. You can leave Earth, having learned a valuable lesson about assumptions and arrogance, or you can stay, and we can begin real diplomatic relations, as equals. In the mountain facility, Lisa, Kevin, Susan, and Frank watched the aliens' reactions through their monitoring systems. The Zaxteri were experiencing a complete shift in their understanding of the universe. Everything they had believed about technological advancement had been upended. Their ships are powering down weapons systems, Kevin reported, monitoring the orbital situation. The aliens had quickly realized that any hostile action would be futile against technology they couldn't even properly detect. Maria continued her address. We could have revealed ourselves 50 years ago when we detected your approach. Instead, we chose to use that time to advance our civilization while studying yours. Every joke about our primitive technology, every dismissive comment about our achievements, taught us something about your species. The Zaxteri leaders huddled in confused discussion. Their entire mission of archaeological study had been turned around on them. They had thought they were the advanced civilization studying ruins, only to discover they had been the ones being studied all along. "We don't seek conflict," Maria said, her voice firm but diplomatic. "We'd hide our achievements not out of fear, but because we believe true advancement includes knowing when not to show off. Your civilization has much to offer, and we have much to share, if you can approach us with respect rather than condescension." Slowly, Kextel stepped forward. The scientist who had been so dismissive of human achievements now understood the true lesson of their mission. "We accept your offer of diplomatic relations," he said, his voice humble. "We have much to learn, not just about your technology, but about our own preconceptions." As the sun set over the transformed city, the last quantum veils lifted worldwide. Earth's true face was finally revealed, not a planet of ruins, but a world more advanced than the Zaxteri had ever imagined. Humanity had proven that true power lies not just in having advanced technology, but in knowing how to use it wisely.